Hello, everyone. And I am here to talk about Honk for Jesus. Now, I I've been seeing mixed reviews, and I think part of the problem is that this movie was kind of marketed as a comedy, and honestly, this is not a comedy. I mean, there's some funny moments, but it is a legit critique on how the Black church is, and many more so about the commodification of religion, specifically in the Black church. There's been some issues that people have about this film when it comes to they are when it comes to looking at the conversation of homosexuality, when it comes to looking at the conversation of um, wealth building and how comfortable you may feel with a pastor amassing a large amount of wealth and how they're able to kind of flaunt this. It also begins to look at this church as a business model and how within, it's a saying that with even in the midst of crisis, there's always levels of opportunity for business growth. And we see that with church. And so a lot of these, and then dealing with this internal, what does it mean to be a Christian? And looking at the flaws of the individuals. And so I felt from jump when I saw the ad that, like I said, I thought it was going to be a comedy. But then I began to look at it even more by thinking of I knew that this was going to come off um, amongst different groups. People were going to be offended. There was going to be, it's not going to have the warmest welcome. And so I automatically had that implanted in my head. So when we got here to the film, I was like, well, let's see how this is going to go. I was kind of stunned that this was not a this was not what I thought it was going to be, actually. And this was, there were some funny moments, and I can see where there are going to be some offensive moments. And really, this is it's anyone who knows anything about some of the more popular ministers in, the last 25, 30 years would be familiar with this story of Eddie Long. And clearly, you can easily pick up that this is an Eddie Long inspired kind of thing. So I was already in the paint, like, uh, so because when you first watch the film, when it first get into it, you're automatically like, okay, so what's the controversy? And I didn't, they don't really explain to you the controversy from the beginning. You're kind of being taught to you're being guided to say the church is closed. There was some controversy. I'm not sure what that controversy is. And you instantly begin to think, okay, well, it's probably something to do with money. And so as a while, you're like, okay, so let me cross that off. It's not a money thing. Okay. So it probably has something to do, I guess it could be sexual, but so let me look at that. And then there was a scene where she's having sex with him, and it becomes the norm to have sex where they don't face each other. And she then wants to change it up. And he is unable to do so. And so then she becomes she eventually is asked to do a sexual act where he's satisfied and she's not. Like there's no attempt to satisfy her at all. And even the sex is awkward when they did try to look at each other. And I find that for you to be married for that a long period of time, section and for you to be this, Bondy Blue always says this big age, right? For you to be this old and you're still kind of like not sure where holes go, this it's strange. So as soon as you see that part and you see her expression and you see the zeroing in a lot on her expression, she's completely unsatisfied in so many areas of this marriage. And you do begin to concept like, okay, so there's something else here. And I can't put my finger on it. And so then when they do the big reveal of what the issue is, then it all makes sense. But I'm going to say the biggest moment for me that I liked about it, but it also really kind of broke my heart, which was when they're doing this Honk For Jesus sign and they're standing on the side of the road to try to get people to come to come to their church opening. He asks her indirectly. He asks her directly, but he does it like as this he's mimicking, and he wants her to put on the mime makeup. And I was heartbroken for her. And I was heartbroken because there is no lengths that she will do in order to help her husband. Like there's no end. And I love her spirit for this, right? But it demonstrates the level of selfishness that he displays. But I also think that it's important to note that she does get something out of this. Like she's getting her position. There's a power position that she has, but it's linked to him. So it's not just doing it out of love for her husband. It's also out of, I lost my position because my position is directly connected to you. So I need to be here in order to regain my position. And so I understand all of that. I just think it feels icky. And it's coded in there's so many layers to this story on how on how churches promote these very toxic relationships, without ever saying, you know what, you need to leave. This is a leaving moment. But people from the outside are very easily in saying you need to leave. And it's complex. I think that it is interesting they went without showing that they had no kids. And I think that is also an important tell in regards to this film and in regards to how they wanted to display this. And there have been a number of pastors that has experienced this level of fall from grace. And I can think of Carlton Pearson as one. Eddie Long's fall was not as dramatic as Carlton Pearson, partly because of Eddie Long died. And I think that if Eddie Long were to have lived, then his, you know, fall from grace. And then also Eddie Long um, walked away from his own church for a bit, had someone come in, take over while he was, so he was willing to kind of save the church. So then you didn't have this level of infighting in the, well, you didn't have this level of the church going under because the pastor was refusing to kind of come to grips and still wanted control, which is what this show was. Whereas Eddie Long, before he died, still wanted to have some relevance, but he was, it seemed like there was an awareness that he was just not going to be able to fulfill his realm of still being the church leader. I don't know. I think it's complicated. And I think that this show gives this level of it's complicated and it's not as easy as one would think. And I did find it interesting how uh, another church benefited from their church closure and how it kind of created this level of church competition. And I don't know how comfortable that makes people feel that one church falls, another church can kind of fill in the blank. And how does competition within churches, how does that work? Is that something that's a goal? Does that make anyone feel good? Like what happens in this situation that we have church competition? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. And it's it makes sense. It's almost a little bit as you watch it a little bit comical, but I still don't think that that is the pathway. It's also an uncomfortable truth because it's true. When one church closes, the people do go somewhere. And, you know, how do you keep your, you're thinking of how do you keep your flock, right? Because it's supposed to be about God, right? But how do you keep your business model going too? It's complicated, and I do appreciate the film touching upon these complicated issues, even though it may not have been as complete. And I understand wholeheartedly people are not going to embrace this film as good because the biggest issue that they're going to have is this, which I keep seeing. What is it? What are they trying to do? And I think the intent is that they're just trying to start a conversation here. Um, our church markets, it's a weird. Is there a market system around churches? Is there market competitions? Because do you really have a business plan when you decide to open up a church? Like, is that what we're supposed to have? It's a strange conversation. I actually do encourage you to go see it and begin to kind of open your mind, formulate opinion, see the uncomfortableness of these conversations and start talking. Like, what does this mean? What does faith in the business of church, right? That's what we're talking about. So have a great rest of your day. I really hope that, like I said, I hope you see it. You don't have to see it at the theaters. I wanted to see it at the theaters because I did want to support um, all of these Black folks who are producing this movie because it's a lot of Black folks producing the film, and it's Regina Hall and Sterling, the two stars that are producing this film. And then of course is Jordan Peele, it's his company that is produced, that is the executive producer. And so I think that this is, he's bringing up conversation. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie at all, but it is a controversial movie that will rub a lot of people the wrong way. I have been reading your comments about the church girl, and clearly my church girl video has rubbed people in different directions. And I get that. The church girl song is still trending all over social media. People are still upset over Beyonce's church girl song. And I'm sure that people are going to start being upset over this film because it is a lot to process, and people may not be comfortable as of yet to talk about a film that is clearly based on Eddie Long.